Well, hello there, this is Shane from Shane's Reviews, and I hope you are having a great day today. So, what shall we talk about? F.O. Wilson, that's right, Gateways. It is book number 7, and the narrations were done by Christopher Price. Again, it is Repairman Jack. So, let's just get on with it, shall we? Is this one going to be worth your time? Because we have covered a few, 7 to be exact. So, just a quick overview. Jack, main character, fixes things, has his own unique morality about life, the universe, and everything. Gia is love interest, Vicky, her kid, and he's kind of a fixer. So if you have something that you couldn't necessarily take to the police, then he can take care of it for you. So if you're being blackmailed, he can kind of fix it. If you have issues with this or this, depending upon your motivations, he might take that on too. In this one, it's a little bit different. So Jack is wanting particular things like anonymity and not having to worry about, Big Brother and all this kind of a thing. It's not that he's a conspiracist, but he had a pretty bad thing that happened whenever he was a kid, and that was how he got started with the whole thing to begin with. But in this one, it didn't really give the clues that sometimes are given in a book that let you know exactly what's going to happen where, when. And this one has got several moving plot points as well. There's a individual that whenever she was a kid, she was very open with her sexuality. Then come and find out bad things start to happen because of that. And she makes a wish and she gets these seashells. And if she puts those over her eyes, she can control animals, or as she got older, groups of animals or swarms of creatures and this, that, and the other. But she's tied into the other, which the other is a force that's trying to, I'm assuming, remove Jack, because without him as a primary player and its little scheme of what should happen with the world, then it can probably be more successful. Then there's Jack's dad. Jack's dad's kind of been something that's not necessarily been an annoying thing to Jack, but on the same token, he's been very distant from his father for a very long time, from removing himself from the family, etc. And then also knowing his dad well enough that if his dad knew what he was doing, maybe he wouldn't support him because it's just the way that he thinks, being Jack. So we get to meet Jack's dad, which is kind of cool, and Jack's girlfriend, and the plot really gets thick real quick on this book, which is cool. It gets right to it. So it's interesting. Jack gets a call from his brother, which I think that I had caught 3 books back that he did have a brother, but I really had never paid attention to that. And his brother's like, well, dad's in a coma, he was in an accident, and I'm in a big time judge and I just can't make it down there. Tag, you're it, go. And Jack's like, nah, I got stuff too. Why don't you go? But anyway, so Jack ends up going down there, which presents him with all kinds of problems, as usual, with him being an anonymous non-entity. So he doesn't have papers or driver's license or things that would say, hi, my name is this. So he has to come up with unique solutions to get through the airport and to get his items down there because, you can't carry a gun on a plane. That's just not cool. And he shouldn't have took what he took with him on the plane either. That's not cool. But Gia had a very good way of looking at it, being that if somebody like Jack was on the planes, then perhaps these particular events in life wouldn't have happened. And I suspect that she's right. So he gets to where his father is. He gets into his dad's house and all that kind of a thing. And his dad's in a coma. His dad's not responding. He has a conversation with people that are taking care of him, and it's really not looking good at a particular point. His eyes aren't moving. He's not responding to anything. And so it's really concerning for Jack that this has happened. But things really aren't adding up. It seems like perhaps his dad was out in the middle of nowhere in Florida, just driving around for no reason whatsoever, and then gets sideswiped where there should be no traffic whatsoever. None. So we start to find out these really weird things. There's, like I said, that individual that has the seashells, right? Her name isn't Sally, by the way. There's this plot that's going on in this retirement facility where his father has been living, and it's actually a fairly unique setup on paper. It's actually pretty cool where the people live there, they're taken care of, they pay their dues, and as soon as they die, the house reverts back being the property of the facility so that can be rented to another individual until the end of their life. So it's a pretty good little thing that they've got going there. But the Everglades, the Glades, the not swamp, but the Delta area. It's been speaking to this person with the seashells for many, many years. That sounds proper, doesn't it? There's this thing where every 3 months somebody dies. It could be from falling into a pit of snakes that shouldn't be there to begin with. Just any kind of animal that you can think of that would be in that kind of an area. Somebody has died every 3 months for quite some time, but nobody has managed to put 2 and 2 together about this. And it's kind of weird because it's all centered around the retirement home that Jack's dad's at. So Jack meets Jack's dad's girlfriend. She seems to be really cool. She seems to be a very unique individual, one that is tied into things, but it's really weird because her grass is growing and doing what grass does whenever there's, like, you know, don't use water orders in place. And some of the more nosy elderly people are trying to figure out how she's doing it, trying to figure out when she's watering and she's not. You know, this being a Repairman Jack novel, it's not going to be so cut and dry as somebody just standing out there with a hose and wearing a camo suit so they can't be seen. No, indeed, she has a tie-in to not the other, but to the benevolent, I kind of want to see things work out. I'm interested in it not being destroyed because it's mine, whereas the other's wanting to completely remove everything, it seems. So, and it doesn't waste any time getting into all that. But that's not all that this book is. There's also some very unique descriptors, some very unique scenes, and some very unique things that are happening. Jack's dad, of course, does wake up. They start trying to tie together what has happened with Jack's dad and the reason why, and then the epiphany of every 3 months hits Jack, probably a little bit before, but that's where he shares it with his dad. And he starts to find out more about his dad. His dad was actually in the military. His dad was a sharpshooter. So they start to actually develop that common bond of father and son of, hey, I know a little bit about this too. So he starts asking his father, you know, what kind of round we're using? What was the grain size? What was this? What was this? And finally his dad just kind of stops and is like, do you shoot? You know, what? That was a very specific question. You've got to know something about this. So let's share and share alike. So it's fun to see that and them actually getting to know each other, because for so long it's been that his dad would call and then Jack would be like, yeah, I got this thing over here. And bye. So the long of it all is it's really neat to see them actually getting to pal around and get to know each other. What are some of the thoughts and the feelings I had? It was good reading a story from Repairman Jack that I hadn't read before. That happened last book, and it certainly happened this book. It was a fun little trip because I didn't know what to expect. Is it going to be worth your time, efforts, and energies? I think so. For me, the previous book was a little bit more interesting than this one is. And it has to do with, there was more of that back end story on Jack. On this is the reason why I know this stuff in this area. So that was the reason why I enjoyed that one a little bit more than this one. But this one has its own things. Like the little dog from Jack's dad's girlfriend. That thing is a ferocious entity. It would be kind of cool to see if this character stays in the books later on. If we find out that that dog is much like the monkey creature that Roma had. That would be just so cool to see, you know, like if it was Hermes or something like that. There was not really any kind of like tension for me. Thoughts and feelings beyond that was some interesting dialogue in between his father. So it made me prideful. It made me proud of Jack to actually start to open up and share, and to see that perhaps they could get on and be allies with each other instead of the cat in the cradle with the silver spoon, right? And beyond that, it was just the wonderment of what next? What's going to come now? What's going to be the next story? How can we continue to go? So the question of the week will be, what if you had those seashells and if you put them over your eyes, then you were able to control animals around you? What would you be and why? I would love to know. I know my answer, and I think I'll just go ahead and share it. I would be either a shark, because here lately I might have played the game Maneater, which was kind of fun. Remarkably so. I wouldn't have thought so, but the way they did it, it was cool. So I kind of would like to be that, just to see. What about you, Scraps? What would you choose? Ooh, I didn't see that coming. Sometimes I regret my life choices. Okay, so this is the most interesting comment this week. There you go. Thank you. Thank you so much for just being a part of the channel. Speaking of being a part of the channel, like, share, subscribe. I'm not sure if you'll pick one of these two videos over here, but if you do, I will see you in the next video. And by the way, I hope that your week is healthy and happy and productive.